Guys, today is Mommy Selects iPhone 16 Pro film screening. Basically, Apple works with Mumbai Academy of Moving Images, which is for film students essentially. And they select like 4 people to use the newest iPhone and the newest MacBook Pro to create a film, and it's just really, really cool. But it also got me to think about how it's become so much more easier to make a film. In freshman year, I was a film major for like 6 months because I really thought I wanted to be a film major. I think it was just like my sister's influence on me. I just wanted to do anything she was doing. But I remember the first 6 months, we had so many assignments. We were learning so much about film dynamics. We were learning so much about what happens behind the scenes. But then I think when you like replace a traditional camera with an iPhone, I think all those dynamics change. I think a lot of it is so different. There's so many pros. And I do think that anyone who wants to be a filmmaker can do it now. It's so much easier. I actually have a friend called Priyanshu. This is his Instagram. He makes a lot of like film style videos, so really dramatic, really well written videos of storytelling on Instagram, and he does it with an iPhone, and I think it's so cool. And now that I think that people are actually making full on films, just means that anyone can start. Literally anyone can start making films on an iPhone, put them on YouTube, put them on Instagram, and get them out there. You no longer have to go the traditional route. One of the films that I am going to watch today is Mangya. It is in Marathi, so I'm really excited to see it. And the creator of this film, Chanakya, got to work with Konkana Sen Sharma to actually make this film. So he was like mentored by her through the process.
I'm so happy that Mami and Apple are supporting these budding filmmakers because they may have great ideas, but it's so difficult to get a foothold in, especially with unusual ideas like this.
I would highly recommend watching it, and I'm also going to attach a link in the description for you guys to go and watch it. I am going to ask him a few questions that I would want to know, so I would highly recommend watching if you're interested in this as well. I want to know about the whole process. I want to know about how the dynamics of film changed. I want to know what he thinks, what advice he has for future filmmakers and storytellers. And yeah, I would recommend watching. That's it. First of all, congratulations. This is obviously huge. Before I go into anything specific, I just wanted to know what your experience was like, obviously working with a film veteran and working with a bunch of Apple products. Dive right in.
Firstly, it feels great to be selected for this, to have the opportunity to make a short film based on an idea that I have been developing for the past couple of months. So just to kind of get the support to make this happen, firstly, is very grateful for that. Secondly, I think the two parts of it, one is of course to use the iPhone 16 Pro Max, the MacBook Pro for the edit. I feel one is that I think it completely, it's interesting, it's twofold, right? One is it frees you from thinking about filmmaking as a very, it's not like only if you have a big camera that you can make a film. Of course you can make a wonderful film in that. But then what can you do with an iPhone 16 Pro Max? I think it's a very interesting challenge. It's a very interesting that one can take forward and explore. I think for me the experience was really about unlearning a lot and as also learning a lot of new things. Like one of the filmmakers, Shalini, was telling that she was like, I want to go back and make one more film now immediately. And in fact, that's something even I am having that urge right now. Like once the film is out, maybe in a couple of months, I have another idea that I want to actually go out and explore. Now that we have done this, it's a very interesting thing because it frees you in a very interesting way. Where you feel like I can actually go and make a 5-minute short if I have an idea. Or a 30-minute short. So that's where I am right
Awesome.
now. Yeah.
Okay. So speaking of that entire freeing experience, tell me what the biggest difference you found in like generally working with traditional equipment and then working with an iPhone 16 Pro Max is what I heard that you used. So give me like a few instances also, like what was the difference between that situation and this one?
Yeah, I think one is that we never in fact compromised on the type of shots we wanted to take or the kind of visual look that we were going for. Just because it was, because it's a phone, let's think differently. It was never like that.
Okay.
We always had the same conversation that we would have with in a very typical conventional camera kind of a setup. So I think that's very good because you're never kind of bound by that. And then you start thinking about, okay, if we see the iPhone 16 Pro Max as a thing which has multiple tools, how do we use each of these tools? So
Right.
using the action mode because we want to have a scene where we're actually capturing characters running or walking fast.
Yes.
We don't want to lose the stability of the image. At the same time, capture it in its best possible way. I think that's an important thing for me.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing is the amount of shooting that we did on each day. My associate director was like, this is insane amount of stuff that we are going to shoot today.
Amazing.
And I used to be like, let's see how day one goes because we had a 4-day shoot.
Right.
I said, let's see how day one goes. We'll see if we need to like reduce the number of scenes. And in fact, we managed to do the entire shoot in the stipulated time in the number of days that we had.
Amazing.
Which I feel from a filmmaking point of view, because everything gets counted by the hour.
Fair
You
enough.
go beyond a 12-hour shift, everything is kind of you know that the set is the bill is running.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
as an independent filmmaker, as someone who's just starting out in the filmmaking journey, it's of great help because then you know that you're able to cover what you want within a limited. And what makes it possible, I would say from my experience of making a film, is that like we could move from one setup to the other, which let's say traditionally would have taken maybe half an hour. I'm saying in a simple setup, just a camera setup from one end to the other,
Right.
which would maybe take like half the time for us to just move from one end to the other.
That's true.
And then the fact that the iPhone 16 Pro Max gives you so many possibilities within it that you're not worried about the quality of it. You're always going to go back and say, okay, fine, this is what I wanted. I've got it.
Correct.
So that you're never second guessing,
Correct.
which is great.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you used action mode. Were there any other modes that you like dove into?
Yeah, we did use. We also used in one moment. We used a slow-mo mode.
Fair enough.
We explored quite a lot. Of course, eventually in the film, only certain parts come in.
Right.
We also used a lot of audio
Right.
in the phone itself. So like
Right.
there is the audio mix, we have the in-frame, the studio mode.
Oh yeah.
Which is great. Especially we did a lot of B-rolls. So the B-rolls we shot before we went to shoot the film because we knew that we might run out of time.
Right.
So the camera team, my DOP Amit Surendran, my associate director Divya Kharanare, they in fact planned it in such a way. They said, let's go before we have the phones and we have a good audio quality. So let's capture it in there. So some of the B-roll shots you see in the film right now, the audio is from the camera, from the phone camera,
nice.
from the phone.
Okay.
Because we
awesome.
could use that very well and it captured
Amazing.
it very well. And then of course clean up and all in the studio just heightens the quality of
Yes.
the audio. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Tell me about, so you said obviously it is a smaller setup than a traditional camera. So I'm assuming because it's so minimal, did it change any of the dynamics between you and your actors? Were there things that you could do here that you wouldn't be able to do traditionally or stuff like that?
Not really, because my actors all came from a good experience of working on stage as well as on screen.
Right.
They were very comfortable with the camera.
Amazing.
I feel sometimes they felt the absence of a camera. I felt. Suddenly they would
But
be
that's a
like-
good thing.
That's a good thing, yeah, because it's never really present in that sense.
Right.
Because it's there, but they know it's there, but
Right.
it's not mounted like in front of their face.
Yes.
And that I think also that my actors were quite excited. Like, how will you make a film? How will you make this film on a phone? How will you make it on the iPhone 16? And I think every time we would do a shot, some of the actors would come back and look at that
They'd come
playback
to see,
on the iPad, and they'd be like, "Oh wow, this is interesting."
Lovely.
So I think the actors were very comfortable.
Amazing. That sounds really cool. So earlier you mentioned that you used a MacBook Pro to edit. From what I know, traditionally when you edit a film, it's usually a dark room and a desktop setup and all of that. But now that you had like a pretty mobile MacBook Pro, did that change anything for you, like your creative process? Were you able to go out? Did you like take advantage of that, or how did you go about it?
Yeah, I mean, of course, the darkroom setup always helps when you go into the final edit stages, just to be able to gauge the image and everything. But the biggest advantage of the MacBook Pro was my editor Pranav was on the sets.
Oh wow.
So he was also helping us with the managing of the data, everyday dailies. So he would take the material footage every day from the phones. He would put it on the MacBook Pro, and the transfer of data, like I'm talking about 1 TB data, would not take more than 30 minutes. I'm talking about I'm talking about where there's no Wi-Fi connectivity because we're shooting a little bit in the outskirts. And every day the best part was for us to, like, I would tell him that, can you show me just the rushes of the previous day? And he in fact opened the editor and he lined it up and he just said, just see it. Just see
Amazing.
it.
That's
And
really
I think
good.
that kind of just ups the game, right? Because
It's very helpful.
It's very helpful because
Very helpful.
you're also less anxious the next
Yeah.
day. Like, okay, you've got this.
Right.
There was one shot, we knew there was a small issue, there was a technical issue. So we went on the day 4, we reshot it. But we could find it out because we could see it in the MacBook Pro, which had a Retina display, and it gives you almost literally close to what you want it to be.
Right.
So you actually get to see it, and I think that really helped us manage the pipeline, the
Amazing.
workflow, everything.
Amazing. Okay, so now that you have worked with an iPhone, do you think this changes like the dynamics of what filmmaking could be? Do you think it's a lot more accessible? What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I feel definitely. I feel filmmaking itself is breaking out of a lot of its own older conventions itself, and I feel something like an iPhone 16 Pro Max is something which will enable people to be able to tell stories
Right.
in a cinematic way.
Right.
And I think it is definitely going to be something that people should capitalize on, use it,
Right.
and see what comes out of it.
Amazing.
Like, as somebody who's just made the film, I want to go back and now make something again.
Lovely.
So I think it just keeps you going, and it's a great thing. Keep exploring everything. Like,
Yeah.
when you want to go back to conventional cameras or
Right.
cameras, go back to it, and then also see, you might want to use a mix. A conventional
Yeah, why
camera and a
not?
phone. Why not?
Yeah.
Depending on the kind of shoot that you are.
Correct. Yeah. Okay, I have one last question. Now that you have experienced this, what advice do you have to budding filmmakers such as what you once were?
I mean, I'm still a budding filmmaker.
Right.
I would like to say. The advice is, I would say, one is really work on your, really spend time on what you want to, your story
Yeah.
and your script, and really kind of get that to the paper, because filmmaking is a lot also about, the script becomes a blueprint.
Right.
You of course can evolve, it changes on the set, but it's a
Right.
good thing to have your ideas written down in a script.
Right.
Second, I would say, if you're using a phone and using the iPhone to make it, I would say just play around with it. Like, don't straight away take the phone and iPhone and start filming it.
Yeah.
I say take some time, just play around with it.
Yeah.
Try all the modes, get your toolbox ready. So
Right.
when the instinct kicks in, you know what to use.
Right.
Otherwise, you're always going to be looking back and saying, oh, I could have used this.
Right. Yeah.
So I would say spend time, get to know your camera, which you would do in any conventional stages also. You get to know
Amazing.
always your camera. So get to know the iPhone 16 Pro Max camera, get to know the phone, so that becomes a muscle memory. And then when you make it, use all the tools
Yeah.
for filmmaking.
Absolutely.
But if you know the tools, you will know what to use when. So I
Okay.
would say these two things. And third thing, I would say, if you're starting out, really just starting out, work with more constraints.
Okay.
Tell yourself 1 minute only, and I have to tell a story in 1 minute.
Okay.
You want to make a 1 minute film with no dialogues, only images,
Right.
no words.
Okay.
Or you want to make a 1 minute film with one bench and 2 characters, two
Right.
strangers. Like, put yourself under more constraints, it'll really open up new ideas.
Basically challenge yourself.
Yeah, most challenging.
If we have time, can I squeeze in one more question? Okay. You said initially that you had to do a lot of unlearning when it came to working with the new equipment. Tell us what you had to unlearn.
I think one of the things that I had to unlearn was to do with, I think just the way we would plan the shoot.
Right.
Right? If I was to do the number of scenes I've shot with the iPhone 16, I would rethink that if I was in a conventional camera setup.
Right.
So one is to unlearn that also. Like, okay, fine, you know what? We can think differently about it. We can do this in a different way. Second is to also go by the fact that sometimes you get very attached to what you've written in terms of your shooting plan, but it all depends on your team. My DOP Amit Surendran, he's somebody who would tell me what the scene is. I would explain the scene to him. I would tell him what the idea of the scene is,
Yeah.
the emotional core or the flow in the story.
Right.
And then he would say, let me give you some ideas for the framing. And he would give me those ideas. So I feel sometimes you might have a shot in mind, But you also need to unlearn that process, and sometimes you just go back to your collaborator, your cinematographer,
Correct.
because they have a very interesting frame.
Correct.
Let's see how we can go about it. So also unlearning some of those methods, like you just sometimes go away from the book.
Okay.
You go more
Yeah.
with instinct. You go more with what's happening there.
Amazing.
Because the whole process is instinctual now, right? We have the phone.
Yeah.
We can do this here. We can do this here. This frame is more interesting than that frame. Should we like not take this and try that? That's it.
Nice.
That's the unlearning.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that's all the questions I have. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
All the best for your
Thank you.
premiere. I'm excited to watch the film.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.